Okay, so as I was saying that the focus is on the Young Professional Society is on 3 areas. Sorry, I'm having some problems here. Just give me a second. I'm trying to resolve this. Yeah, on leadership, communication, and innovation. We've had several webinars. We had one yesterday on innovation and trying to get the youngsters, the youth, to understand about innovation and creativity. And it was a good, well-attended webinar. And the aim of this Young Professional Society, which has been set up, is to help young people, youngsters, based not just in the UK, but anywhere in the world, try to help them with personal and professional development. Now, this webinar comes at a very important time. It's very, very timely because only 2 days ago in the UK, the A-level results came out. And this was the first time ever that I can think of that the results were calculated. And that was because the students were not able to sit their exams because of the current COVID-19 situation. So what the government had to do was that they had to calculate the results. And these calculations were based on a number of factors. For example, the mock exam results that the students got, the report that the teachers had written about the student, and any other assessments that the student had during the course of their study program were taken into consideration. However, there have been some problems, some issues. Jacob doesn't have the game. Let me mute this. If you've been following the news, almost about 40% of the grades were downgraded. So there's a lot of upset students. So the purpose of this webinar today is to go through, we have a panel of academics, people who are in the university system and who are familiar with students coming from colleges onto the university for the different degree programs, and is to have a discussion and to see what information we can give to the youngsters who have been affected this year and who have received these results 2 days ago. They may be happy, they may not be happy with their results. And although the focus of the Young Professional Society is not limited to the UK, however, this webinar, we've said it's a UK university admissions because it is to do with people who have received the A-levels in the UK. So what I will do now is I will introduce our let me just go on to this. Can you see that slide or no? Okay, now you can. Okay, perfect. Sorry, we were having some problems here. Okay, so firstly, we have Rona Baba, our very own Rona Baba, who is a mentor, a coach, who has a lot of experience in mentoring, coaching youngsters. She's worked many years with students from at school, at college, and even at university. And she's been mentoring staff in the university level as well. So she has a lot of experience in with youngsters in the education. So it's very, very important that we have her in the panel and see what advice she gives to the youngsters who have been affected and to see what she predicts what could happen, because it's still sort of early. I mean, we've seen what's happened in Scotland and that, but we have to wait and see what happens in the UK concerning these results. 2 days ago, the A-level results were out, but next week, the GCSE results are coming out as well. But for this webinar today, we are going to sort of focus on the A-level. But I'm sure students who have the GCSE results next week, they can also benefit from this webinar, because obviously in 2 years' time, they'll be in the same boat as well. hopefully the COVID should be resolved by then. And then also we have Dr. Imran Patel, who is a senior lecturer at Leicester University in the Department of Engineering. And Imran's a program leader in the Masters in Engineering Management, and he's also the lead for Engineering Management team. So he's an engineer himself, so he has a lot of sort of experience. He's worked at other universities as well, and he's quite sort of involved with student recruitments and things like that. So I think his input will be very, very valuable in this webinar today. We were supposed to have Dr. Saqib Yusuf, who unfortunately cannot be with us. He has some sort of, I think, he's not too well today, and he's not able to join us. But he was a lecturer in pharmacy practice, communications and international lead at the University of Central Lancashire, UCLan, which is based in Preston. And he was able, he would have contributed and given some sort of his valuable input into this webinar. But not to worry, we have Professor Bukhar Ahmed, who is, firstly, I would say he's the president of the Young Professional Society. Professor Ahmed is also the Deputy Director of Research, College of Science at Lincoln University. He's a Deputy Head of School and Professor of Nanoscience at the University of Lincoln. So I think we have a good panel, and myself, will be the host, the moderator, and then obviously I will be having an input into this as well. So just to give you a overview of the format of today's webinar, I've given you a bit of an introduction, and we will have a panel discussion. So we will be discussing some of the questions that you may have in mind, and hopefully our panel will be answering them and giving their views on these different questions, and hopefully that should sort of answer some of the questions that the students may have, or some of the parents may have as well. And then what we'll do, the second part of this webinar, we're going to open the floor and ask people if they have any specific questions that our panel can take and answer. And just to sort of inform you that the questions, either if you have a question, you can actually type the question in the chat box. So hopefully, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Zoom. You'll have the chat box there, so you can ask the question. You can type the question up, and we'll go through the question, and hopefully we'll try to answer all the questions. Alternatively, what we could do is that you can unmute your mic. Maybe you can raise your hand electronically. There is a button there, I think next to your name. You can click on that more on the right click, and then there should be a hand raise electronically. You can hand over, or you can physically raise your hands, and then we can sort of ask you, and then you can unmute your mic, and then you can ask the question, and then hopefully one of the panel members will be able to answer. Now, we were looking to sort of live stream this on Facebook as well, so that we could draw in more people from the social media on Facebook, but I think we've not been able to do that. We were looking into that. Hopefully in the future webinars, we will be doing that. But however, this webinar is being recorded, and after completion, hopefully we'll upload this on our Young Professional Society official YouTube channel, so that people who have not had the opportunity to join this will be able to see this webinar on YouTube, and then hopefully that will be useful for them as well. So what we will do now is that we'll go on to this panel discussion, and I put some questions down. So at what age should one be thinking about careers? So I think what we'll do is, I know for myself, when I was around 8 years old and I came to this country, my father will be saying, "Oh, make sure you become a doctor," and I never knew at the time what he was, never paid much attention, just continued with my thing. They constantly was embedding it in my mind that you need to be a doctor, you need to be a doctor. So then as time went on, I never became a medical doctor, but I was a PhD doctor. Yeah, so it was an early age that my parents, but maybe we can ask our panel members to sort of have an input. Maybe we can start with Professor Ahmed or Rona Baba, whoever would like to go first.
I think Professor Ahmed would like to go first.
Okay.
Sorry, you need to unmute. Sorry. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you can now, please.
Okay, yeah, I think it's very important to think about careers early on in your life, because some of the career, I kind of fell into my career that I'm doing now by default, but luckily I love what I'm doing. So, you know, but when I was early on, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So you need to make a decision early for several reasons. Number one is you need to prepare to get into the university degree program of your choice. So, for example, if you say, like lots of Asian parents say, we want to go and do medicine, become a doctor, you need to start off very early if that's what you want to do. Because if you decide after your GCSEs, it's getting too late, or if you decide when you get your A-level results, it's too late. So to get into some things like medicine and dentistry, you need to get very high grades, like you need to get 6 like A-star grades to get into GCSE level. Then you need to do well in your mock exams, and you need to do well in your A-levels. So if you by chance pick certain subjects and you don't pick chemistry, then it's impossible for you to get into medicine and pharmacy and these type of careers, because chemistry is an essential subject. So if you didn't pick that early on in your career and get good at chemistry, it'd be very difficult to get into medicine and dentistry. Similarly, if you want to get into accountancy, it's important that you pick mathematics and be good at mathematics so that you can get into accountancy. So the earlier that you can decide, you'll then pick the right GCSEs and you'll pick the right A-levels to actually get into the careers that you, degree programs that you want to get into and follow that career. But it's also always very difficult for a youngster to decide which subject shall I do, which career do I want to get into. And one of my suggestions is that you should try and get some work placements and things. So for example, my daughter wanted to be an optician, and she did a work placement at opticians in Asda, and then decided against that and ended up saying, no, I don't want to do optometry. I know that's something I definitely don't want. I'll go and do pharmacy. So it's important to get mentoring and support and some advice from experienced people in that profession that you want to get into, so you can do the right degree program, the right A-levels, the right GCSEs, and also work hard right from an early stage to get into the careers that you want to. But I'm also a big believer in doing what you actually love doing, and that you can give your life to it and be dedicated to it. So I'm not always advocating going to medicine and going to dentistry, going to pharmacy. There's many, many careers that you can be very successful at. I hope that.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned about Asian parents and, asking the kids, you need to be doctor. Sometimes, they could be pressurizing kids at your early age as well. Maybe Rona wants to say something on that, or?
Yes, I find it fascinating, actually. On the one hand, I think it's a fantastic thing to encourage your children early years, definitely. But on the other hand, I think it can be quite frightening for some young people to feel the pressure that they've got to be a doctor or they've got to be a lawyer or whatever. And I know a friend of mine, we have this standing joke. When she discovered she was pregnant, after a while I said to her, she's an Asian girl, after a while I said to her, do you know what you're having? She says, yes, a doctor. So I said, well, but she was saying it as a joke as well, but there is the pressure. But it's not just Asian families. My particular family, my father was only interested in us having an education, and he didn't particularly mind which career path we were going to follow, as long as we were having a proper education, going to university, etc. Because he always instilled in us that knowledge is power. And it is, you know, and you can always, I don't like to use the word switch, but it's something that has to be considered when young people are thinking about their careers. Because if you're kind of pushed in one direction and it's not where your natural bent lies, if you don't have a love of the subject, you're unlikely to give it your all. I think it's much better if young people, and this is the problem, I mean, you know, Professor Ahmed has just said so, young people don't know what they want to do unless they have a vocation from an early life, you know, from early on. I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or whatever. It's unlikely that they know. And I think there is a lot of pressure on young people to decide what they want to do when they don't really know. So I would always say, just go for the best education you can get. And then you've got a choice, you know. And if, again, if they do want to do medicine, then they would obviously have to do chemistry. If they want to do law, they'd have to do Latin, probably. Still, I think they still have to do that. I know my kids did, so I can remember night after night getting quoted. I did it at school as well. So yeah, I think the main thing is to encourage young people to do their best from an early age.
Imran, you want to come and say anything, or we move on to the next?
Well, let's move on to the next slide. I'll probably have a comment there because I think this is one of many slides we've got to go through, and we've got to have options for students to ask questions.
Okay,
as well.
so I think this is a question that a lot of the youngsters will want to know. What can I do if I don't get the grades? Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing because then at least we could see more people.
Yeah.
Professor Ahmed, maybe if you could, if the students don't get the grades, this year, you know, those students who the A-level results have come out, they've not got the grades. You can unmute yourself, please. I think you're muted.
Yeah, obviously this year is a very unusual year, and there's many people that haven't got the grades that they want. I think 30–40% of the people didn't get the grades that they wanted. And so it's this year is an unusual situation. So this year, if you don't get the grades, obviously there's you've got options of appealing against the grades that you were given, and you also got the option of resitting or redoing an examination in the autumn. So that's the two options this year. But sometimes, you know, even if you had exams and you don't get the grades you want, there's always other careers that you can go into. So if you, for example, decide you wanted to do medicine and you didn't get into medicine, there's also the other healthcare professions like dentistry, pharmacy, optometry. You can get into that kind of stuff. And if you're good at maths, you can go into accountancy, finance, banking. So there's plenty of options available. There's no disgrace in not getting into medicine. And most people don't get into medicine. There's equally good careers in other areas. So, of course, it's disappointing not to get into the subject you want to, but it's not the end of the world. Life is a long process. And as long as you're passionate about something, do what you love to do.
However, it is extremely frustrating for the kids this year who will never know really how well they would have done. And one of the things that's caused a bit of a backlash is this algorithms business, how they've worked it out. And it has come out of the woodwork, basically, that the teachers have chosen to downgrade some of the pupils who they didn't think were going to be successful anyway. So they've prejudged. And it's mainly been pupils who are coming from a disadvantaged area, or what we would call lower classes. I hate that term, but they still use it. And that means that even some of those children who have, or young adults who have strived so hard to get the good results and have been downgraded, I can't imagine how that must feel. And there's going to be a huge backlash. I don't think people are going to take that lying down. I think that come after the weekend, I think things will have to be said, decisions will have to be made about what's going to happen. But they can't just leave it hanging out there in the air. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
There is a petition that people have signed. Over 150,000 people have signed this petition to take legal action against the government.
Yeah.
So I think it's gaining momentum. this discord. And also, not only are the students suffering, the universities have given offers for certain grades, and they're also uncertain. So there's lots of redundancies going on in the universities because they're not going to get the anticipated number of students on their courses. So the whole country is suffering, really.
Yeah. They're also not going to get a lot of their foreign students in either because they can't travel at the moment, and probably won't even then.
Okay. Yeah, I think Imran has sort of lost connection, but he's logging back on again. So Dr. Imran will be there joining us. Okay, we can move on to the next question, which I'm just going to share so that people can see, and then I'm just going to unshare. Can I appeal my A-level results? Professor Ahmed, what's the procedure then?
Yeah, so of course you can appeal against your A-level. So usually the appeal is going through the schools. So if the schools believe that you should have got higher grade, and they can demonstrate to that, you know, either through mock results and past records and stuff, that there's some kind of error or mistake or some miscalculations that have been made, then the schools can appeal for you. And then if you get the high grade that you expected to get, then the universities have to honor your place, and they'll give you a place on the course of your choice. But you have to have, obviously, in any appeal process, you have to have tangible evidence. You can demonstrate, because of A, B, C, D, E, I would have got the grades that the university are asking. So it's gathering that evidence. And again, you have to work with your schools and with your teachers and they can put that appeal on your behalf. If you think there's a problem in the school, there's some kind of change in management, or there was a flood or something unusual has happened in the school, then you can appeal as an individual against your results, because it's not your fault, it's maybe the school's fault or some changes, unusual changes that happened.
Yeah, and also as we know that the government, was it early this morning or yesterday, that they are sort of announced that they will be paying for these appeals. So they are sort of allowing people to appeal, and they'll be paying. So that means whether, you know, you mentioned there's a petition going on and that, yeah, but if the government is prepared to pay for some of these appeals, you know, whether they will back down and whether they will rethink, it's, you know, remains to be seen.
The government have committed to paying for the appeals.
Yes, absolutely they have. But I'm sure not everybody will be able to appeal. Probably it's those people who are on the borderline, you know.
Yeah, so if you've got, like, you know, if you, I think on average, the GCSE, the A-level results are 2 or 3 grades lower than what they were expecting, which is a significant drop in the grades that they predicted. So if you got something close to the grades that you were expecting, then you've got good grounds for appealing.
Yeah, it's always an option to appeal. Yes, and I think because we're during this COVID era, you know, and students have not sat exams, you know, they should be given the benefit of the doubt. I know when I'm in one of the parent governor for one of the local schools, and they were mentioning that, you know, this is about 2 months ago, that the head teacher was saying that in his opinion, it's probably that, you know, students will end up doing better. Yeah, they're going to give benefit of the doubt, and people will, but that's not what's happened. Yeah, I mean, they were expecting that nobody will be disappointed, but unfortunately people have. Yes, Imran, it's nice to hear. Nice to have you.
Sorry, it's the Virgin Media. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I just dropped the connection. And I think there's too many people using the bandwidth in my house as well. Playing games, I think that's what it is. I don't know what I've missed, but if I can just perhaps contribute, and in line with what Ron also said and Professor Ahmed, it is quite right that there might be or will be and are a lot of the students who are disappointed with the grades. But at the same time, I think most universities have also scaled down their entry requirements. So that's the flip side of it. So as an engineer, I'm an automotive engineer. I'll talk more on the engineering. University of Leicester, we have a number of programs. AAB, for example, is an entry requirement, and we have certainly dropped that too. So it's not, I mean, with the medicine or engineering or any other fields, it's a very, very diverse and very wide field. So students wanting to do perhaps an automotive engineering and could not quite get in, can do general engineering or perhaps do an aerospace or civil engineering. So there's always option available there. And also, if the students who are listening are based in Northwest, it's quite likely they might want to remain in Northwest. But there is also, there are about 7 or 8 institutes just in the Northwest. So if you are willing to travel, most of the 140-ish institutes in UK do have undergraduate programs in engineering. So there are options there. And also, just to inform you that the clearing that the institutes, universities around the country had a couple of days ago, they are in a way competing with each other in order to get the students too. So a lot of the students have left it to the last minute when the results came in. We know as university professionals that it has been downscaled. Government knows, the off-cute knows that too. But I don't think that, you know, the students should be put off just because you did not get what you expected to. There are still a lot of options out there, which I'm sure when the questions comes in a little bit later, we'll try and address them.
There's also many universities offer foundation programs. So if you can't get onto the program of your choice, you could do a foundation year and then get onto the program next year.
Yeah, quite right. And just to again elaborate on, just to give you an example here, I was searching for jobs within automotive industry in this country. Excuse me. There were at the time about 3,500 jobs. Now, if you selected for mechanical engineering degree, the jobs opens up to 8,000 or 9,000. And as a mechanical engineer is able to become an automotive engineer. Now, if you specify just automotive or just aerospace, then you are in a way restricting yourself just in that discipline. So bear in mind that there are other options, as I said, in terms of general engineering, mechanical engineering, number of institutes around the country, and that will ensure that you are able to go into the career path that you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, Imran, you mentioned clearing. Can we just sort of clarify what is clearing? You know, what do we mean by clearing?
Clearing is where, I mean, I think a number of months ago, towards the end of last year, when the mock exam during A-levels and B.Tech, students were offered conditional offers in universities. Now, if those students who met those grades, let's say AAA, and our University of Leicester said, yeah, we need AAA to get into medicine. The students who had that, we've given them offer, fine, all done. Now, if the students receive AAB, they can ring around our university and other universities anywhere in the country and say, look, I've received AAB rather than AAA. Can I get in? Can I come in? And most universities, or a number of universities, will not turn you away. They will not turn you away. Now, we're talking about, again, I don't want to talk too much on just medicine. There are lots of wonderful industries and pathways out there. And Manchester Uni, one of the red bricks university based in Northwest, they offer a variety of undergraduate programs there, as well as many others in the Northwest. That's just naming one. So students are able to ring around universities, and we man phone from 6 a.m. in the morning till about 6 p.m. Because at the end of the day, I mean, universities need to make money, so they need to generate income. They need students, of course, quality students as well. So students has in many ways the power actually to select which universities they want to go to. We want you to come into my university, but you think, hang on a minute, I've got about 130 institutes in the country. I can go to the top or middle or the bottom ones, depending on your grades. So you actually are in a better position, I would say, than university. Depending, I mean, that largely depends if you want to travel outside of your comfort, your home, if you want to leave Northwest. So there's that determination factor there as well.
And also because the fact that international students are now going to be coming in now due to the COVID, probably your universities are relying more on the local national students, home students.
Yeah, quite right, Dr. Ali, because we were trying to convert our current undergraduates into postgraduates, which there wasn't a lot of emphasis in the last few years, but there is now. And a lot of universities are in deficit already in terms of monetary terms. So we would be open to a lot of ideas or a lot of grades. So if you do think that, you know what, you were looking for AAA and you got BBC, still ring that university or still ring around the top 10 universities. They might still take you in that university.
This is when soft skills come to the fore. This is when you really have to have polished up your act a bit. We're making these phone calls or writing to them, especially the universities that interview the candidates. And that's where I find that an awful lot of the students fall down. It's one thing having the grades, but when it comes to putting yourself across face to face, a lot of them, you know, just collapse at the very thought of it.
I think quite right, Rona. Just to add to the earlier slide, also that do not predetermine what you want to become. I think my experience, and this is what I see throughout the years, I've been in academia for over a decade now, is that if a student enjoys hands-on subjects, woodwork, metalwork, CAD, that kind of work, physics, they tend to lean more towards engineering. Whereas the students who enjoy biology, chemistry, perhaps they lean towards more on the medicine side. Of course, there are many other disciplines out there too. So also enjoy, go down the route in terms of the programs, degree programs, in terms of what you actually enjoy. Professor Ahmed mentioned, Rona mentioned, in order to experience what the life in university could be or the career life, get a part-time job in that discipline, do a voluntary work, speak to professionals. And you will get hopefully a clear idea. I know many years ago, the schools, I mean, I've been to three weeks in different places to get work experience. I think nowadays it's only 1 week. It just gives you a bit of a taster of the various industries, various disciplines.
Yeah, one of my daughters almost bankrupted me because she went to university absolutely full of the idea that she was going to be a journalist. She loves English. She studied English. And then in her third year, she decided that she would change her mind and she wanted to go into law instead and become a parent. She saw the lifestyle that her sister was having, you see, and she's thinking, oh, you know, quite like the idea of that. So she decided then she was going to convert to law. So that meant another year. She went to Chester, converted to law, and then she had to go to London, to the bar school. We had to finance a flat in London for her. It was like 8 years of further education. She went to Oxford initially, but that's another thing, really, if a young person doesn't know what they want to do and they're on that cusp of, you see, they feel they've got to make a choice, and this is where I think it gets more difficult. If they were able to go ahead and get their degree and then decide what they wanted to do afterwards, but that's not really realistic. But that would be the ideal scenario if they could do that. But on the other hand, I think we don't put enough emphasis on the soft skills as well. And again, it was actually Professor Ahmed who'd said about getting a job in the industry that you quite fancy and get a taste for it. But one of the things I discovered, I was in recruitment, very high level recruitment for quite a while. And I discovered that when people were going for interviews for jobs, they were being interviewed by the person that they weren't even going to be working with. And that didn't make sense to me. I thought whichever department you're going to be working in, if you're going to work in a hospital, if you're going to work in an engineering factory, wherever you're going to work, the person who interviews you should be the person that you're going to be working with. Because quite often, again, somebody will go to the job thinking, oh, I like that person. And quite often that's why they're chosen for the job, because the person that interviewed them had a connection with them. But then when they turn up for the job on the Monday morning, they're working with somebody that they've never seen before, and there's not that connection, and that's very difficult, finding yourself in that position. So a lot of homework needs to be done at that stage when you're starting to look at where you want to work, what your career path is. And we don't want to put too much emphasis on the higher end jobs like law and medicine and things, because that's only a fraction of these kids. Most of these kids will be going into university to get a degree in all manner of things, you know, geography and just whatever subject you want to stab a pin in. So at the end of that, that's where we have young people who have now got this degree and don't know what they're going to do with it. So that's where I think a bit of fear. Sorry?
Okay, no, I think your mic had an issue or so, but okay.
All right, yeah. So I think that's something else that we have to consider, especially for the young people now who not only didn't know what they were going to be doing because they hadn't made up their mind, but it also may be because now they think they've got no hope because they don't have the grades that they thought they were going to get. And we need to give a bit of consideration for those young people as well. What advice do we give them? So.
Okay. Professor Ahmed, if I can ask you, what do universities look at when they make offers?
Yeah, so basically, we get dozens and dozens of applications in. So you've got dozens of applications on your desk on these UCAS forms. And obviously, students have taken meticulous care in writing the applications, hours and hours and hours. But we only have a very short space of time to make a decision. So when I used to get these application forms, I used to first of all look at the GCSE grades that they've got. And if the GCSE grades are good, then I would look at their mock results, what mock results they've got. So if their mock results were still good, and then I'd look at their personal statements and the references. So if it was all good all the way, it would make them an offer. If, for example, the GCSE grades were average and the subject required high grades A-levels, but the teachers predicted high grades, I will have my doubts. If the GCSE grades are not that good, how can the teacher predict that this student is going to get 3 A's? So then I'd find it hard to give that offer, even though the teacher has given a good reference. Also, look for the personal statement in terms of what initiative have they shown, how well have they written their statement, do I believe that this person is going to be successful in this field? And have they got the commitment, the desire, the hunger to be successful? And if I can believe they're going to be successful on the course, then I can, okay, let me give you an offer. And then sometimes people used to come for clearing, and instead of, they used to just knock on my office door. So I remember once this gentleman came. He was very, very smartly dressed, and he was saying, I really want to do this course. This is why I want to do it, blah, 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 blah. And he was very articulate. And there was 2 of them walked in at the same time, and they convinced me to give an offer. When I gave the offer and had verbally committed, the offer wasn't for this gentleman who had communicated beautifully. It was his brother who was just sat there. And they were like a similar age, and I couldn't go back on the offer.
Right.
So Rona's point about communication skills are very, very important. I've also been on interview panels into medical school where you do these exams. They got all these stations, and at each station there's 3 or 4 academics sat there, and they say, okay, tell us what you know about corona. What's the latest thing you've read about coronavirus? Or what's the latest thing you've read about this certain issue in the news? And the way they articulate that information to you in a coherent, clear way makes a big difference on the panel. So I remember somebody coming in and they were talking in slang language. They weren't appropriately addressed. And they had very, very good grades. And my colleague said, can you imagine this person being your doctor? And it was difficult to argue against that, although all the grades were perfect, but the communication skills weren't there. Mm-hmm. So because you're dealing with patients all the time, and I know people who've got straight A stars in every single subject at GCSE level, they got straight A's at A levels, and because of their lack of communication, they did not get into the course of their choice. Mm-hmm. So you can't overemphasize, I think, communication, but universities are looking for evidence, tangible evidence, that this person is going to succeed.
Okay. I think we've had some discussion. I just want to ask two more questions. Could be brief as well, and then I think we'll invite people to ask the question. Firstly, before we do that, I want to know: can the government do a U-turn like the Scottish Parliament on downgraded results? Is there a possibility there? What would be your views? Anybody can answer that.
I think they should. I hope they do. I think they should. And I think they may well, because I think they're going to get quite a backlash.
And they could as well. So they should and they could. So yeah, perhaps they should.
Well, if they're prepared to pay for the appeals, maybe they might not. I don't know. So they're encouraging appeals to take place, and they're not going to change that. But like Rona said, yes, I hope that they do. You know. The other question was maybe Professor Ahmed could answer that, or even Imran. How will the universities operate during this COVID-19?
You want to go first, Professor Ahmed?
So basically, in our university, and I think most universities, what we've decided is that almost all of the teaching is going to occur online through the virtual learning environments. So the only face-to-face teaching is going to be where you have like laboratory classes. So for example, in physics, you can't get a physics degree without doing physical practicals. So with the appropriate social distancing and PPE, we've arranged for practical classes to take place. And we've said that, so it's going to be more blended learning with very few practical classes face-to-face, mostly online. We've said that the students should get 4 hours face-to-face contact in the week minimum. And the timetable just about allows us to do that.
Yeah, we're going down a similar route. We have this program called Ignite. So it's synchronous and asynchronous teaching. So effectively blended learning, and any lab works. So the social distancing will be adhered to. And then and this is a case for generally the undergraduate and the postgraduate. So I think this is where most of the universities will be adopting some sort of a technology platform to teach. I think it just increases more workload, I think, for this stuff in many ways.
Okay. Thank you, Imran. I think we've had a good discussion. Now we'll move on to the question. I'm just checking the chat box, and we have a question from Hanifa Khan, who has said, if I put down my predicted grades and leave them as pending until I get to sit my exams in October, would the universities consider me for medicine? Professor Ahmed? So she's...
Your mic's off, Professor Ahmed.
The mic, sorry, you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, the university term will already have started. So our start date is the 12th of October. So basically, if the term has started and you don't get results for a significant amount of time, then it'll be difficult to start. Some courses start in January, but they are postgraduate courses, so that might. So basically, I think it may be, if you get the grades, then next year you will get a place.
Okay, perfect. I was checking through the chat box. Maybe, do we have any other question? Maybe somebody can raise their hands, would like to unmute the mic or so, or even unfortunately, no one's got their cameras on, so we're not able to see. But maybe you can raise your hand electronically. You can type in the chat box, or you can ask a question and unmute yourself. Do you have any questions?
I think there's some coming in the group chat, Dr. Ali.
A question. Do you know anything about, we have Anushka Nadeem, who said, do you know anything about the appeals process regarding using mock results as your official grades?
Well, if we're talking about the current situation, I think what will happen on Monday, we'll need some light thrown on what the government are actually going to do, but that might become a moot point, because if the government say they're going to, take back these downgrades and ask the schools to then, you see, the difficulty is timing as well as everything else. You know, if the grades get reconsidered and most young people end up with the grades that they thought they were going to get, although I don't think that's likely to happen because it doesn't happen in the real world anyway. We have to be realistic, you know, about what was predicted and what, I mean, I know some people will say, well, everybody should get the chance, and they will. But what will happen on Monday or maybe Tuesday, whenever it will be, when the government make the decision about whether or not they're going to take some action? I think that's the coward's way out, to say we'll pay legal fees for people who want to sue us. I think that's a ridiculous statement to make. They should be trying to avoid that. They should be trying to find, you know, a reasonable answer to this problem rather than say, well, sue us. That's going to take an inordinate amount of time and money. And there must be an easier way, surely. I think they have to go back to the schools and get them to regrade if that's what it takes.
We have another question from Malaika, who says, can backup courses be competitive too? So if they're not able, if they missed out on, say, medicine or law or something like that, and any backup courses, I don't know.
Yeah, I think obviously some backup courses, there's still a big demand for them. So for the medicine, the backup courses would be dentistry, and dentistry is also very high grades to get in. And then you've got pharmacy and optometry. And so some backup courses are competitive. Obviously, they're not as competitive as the courses of your choice. So sometimes if people get asked to get 3 A's and they get A and 2 B's, then they might get into their backup courses. So some backup courses are probably just as good as the courses of your choice sometimes.
Okay. There's another question here, that if, for example, someone has not got the grades that they were expecting, and they decide to sort of take this year out or something, do you think applying to university next year is going to be more competitive?
So
more competitive than what? More competitive than it is now, or has been?
Maybe now.
Yeah.
This is exceptional circumstances.
I wouldn't know how to answer that one, to be honest, because I don't know. I don't think it can get much more competitive for the better positions as it stands. It's always been very competitive.
We hope things will return back to normality next year. Hopefully COVID vaccine will be developed, you know, and students will be sitting physically the exams, and we're not going to have these calculated grades. So hopefully we shouldn't have this problem. Okay, we'll move on to another question. My friend who was unable to attend today is scared that the GCSE will hold them back. They are expected to get a 7 in chemistry and a 6 in French. Will this hold them back in 2 years when they apply to study medicine at Imperial College or Oxford?
Can I just mention something about getting into the universities like Imperial College or Oxford or Cambridge? I think a huge percentage of whether or not you're successful in admission is when it comes down to interview. The interview lasts a long time, and you're literally turned inside out. You have to be extremely well prepared. That's why schools offer something called Oxbridge. I don't know how many of the students will obviously already be familiar with that term, but it's extremely important that if you want to go into one of these universities, you really need to get your soft skills in shape. You have to be used to being interviewed. You should have mock interviews all the time with your family, with anybody who will talk to you, and get yourself put under pressure, because they put you under real pressure. You don't get into these universities because you're smart enough. That's not enough. You know, most of the kids that apply have got those grades. Well, you have to have them before you can even apply to go into Oxford or Cambridge or Imperial or some others. So what you have to have then is that extra, something extra, which will be your soft skills. How good a communicator are you? How well do you know your subject? How passionate are you about it? That's what will get you into those universities, not your grades.
It will also help if the students are able to be on some sort of a voluntary commitments. And this, I think, youth enterprise that's been started up, I think that would help a lot as well. Part-time work and being in the forefront in your community, in the medicine field particularly. It is very, very competitive, and only a few institutes around the country do offer medicine. So as Rona said, yeah, the grades, everyone's probably who are applying for medicine have probably A stars. But that's unfortunately, it's not enough. It's the other software skills that will be required for the students to have.
And also, I think just to sort of answer a bit more the question, obviously places like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, they will be looking at not just the A-level results here, but the GCSEs as well. So it's important that, you know, I think the question was, if you've not got 8s or 9s in the GCSE, would that have an impact on them when they apply medicine at these places? So, but we're hoping that the next week the GCSE results will be a bit better, not like the A-level results. But like Rona mentioned, the soft skills are very, very important. And this is why one of the reasons we've set up this Young Professional Society to help youngsters with communication was one of the things, you know, to become better speakers, become more confident, develop leadership. So there's all these things. Yeah, soft skills are very, very important. Okay, I'll move on. Would the university prefer to sit all the exams in one sitting, or will they accept splitting the exams in October and May, June, when applying for medicine and dentistry? Professor Ahmed, do you want to?
Yes, a difficult question to answer, but it depends on timing also. So when you put your application in, if you've already got the grades, it's much easier for somebody to make a decision. So if you've got one grade and the other one is pending, it's harder to make the decision. So it's a difficult one to answer. We're just looking for tangible evidence that this person has got the grades, or very, very confident they're going to get the grades for them to be successful in this area. Just to go back to another point about what, for the last question, communication skills are very important, and experience in the field are very, very important. So one of my friends, his daughter went to Cambridge to do medicine. For her GCSEs, she had 10 A stars. In them days, it was A stars, and she had 1 A, and that A was in art. And she was very, very close to getting an A star in art. Then she did A levels, and she got 5 A levels, grade A's. And then in addition to that, she went to India. She worked in a hospital and got some work experience in the hospital. She worked in some nursing homes. She worked in some orphanages. So in addition to the academic grades, you need all that package to convince them, look, I'm going to be an exceptional doctor. And so with all that, you're building up the communication skills, you're building up experience, you're building up your judgment ability, and then you stand out. Everybody at Oxford and Cambridge, they're going to get A stars and A's in their A levels. They're going to get the highest grade. The distinguishing factor is going to be these additional extras that they've got. Yeah. Which is, you know, being articulate, good communication skills, good experience, being ambitious, having the drive to succeed.
One of my daughters had a really grueling interview at Oxford, and it was good guy, bad guy situation. You know, one of them was really, you know, digging at her and asked her what she thought of Sylvia Plath, poet. And she said, well, she's not really my cup of tea. I can't remember who she said. So the Don started to rip her to shreds because she didn't like Sylvia Plath. She said, give me an example of why you don't like her. And I think it was The Mirror was the one that she'd chosen. Anyway, the interview was extremely difficult, extremely stressful. So when she came out, she phoned me and she said, don't retire yet, Mum. I don't think I've got in. The interview was a nightmare and I don't think I did well enough. I said, well, it don't matter, you know, it's not the end of the world. And we got a letter 3 days later saying that she'd got in. She was gobsmacked, she couldn't believe it. She thought the interview had gone that bad that she didn't have a chance of getting in. But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that's got a bit about them. I'm not going to agree with you just because you're, you know, asking me to. It's not what I believe. Stand your ground. So I'm not suggesting you get into a fight when you go for your interview, but certainly be confident, you know, have that sense of, I want to get in here. Make up your mind before you go in that you're getting in. That's the most powerful attribute that I could tell anybody to have, is the positive thinking. Always think positively. Don't think, oh, I'm never going to do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. Because if you do that, you've failed before you've started. Toughen up.
We have another question from Hania Khan, who says, if grades are reconsidered, would it be the UCAS grades that universities were given or center assessed grades that the teachers first gave before the downgrade? Professor Ahmed, you want to shed some light on that?
No, I'm not 100% sure on that question. Imran, maybe you know a bit better.
Listen to that. Did you hear the question? You need to unmute Imran. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Did you hear that? If grades are reconsidered, would it be the UCAS grades that universities were given or center assessed grades that the teachers first gave before the downgrade?
I think I'll have to play a straight part here, Nasser, and I wouldn't know the answer to this, and I don't think.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. If a student feels that the mock grades of this year were not a true reflection of their ability, is this a reasonable grounds for appeal? Professor Ahmed?
It's like, you know, everybody feels that they should do better than they've done or better than they were predicted. Yeah, so everybody feels that, but it's how can you demonstrate that? It's not just a feeling. You have to have some tangible evidence that you can demonstrate that these grades are not a true reflection of what you would have got if you sat the exam. So if your mock grades are not as good, then certainly you can't demonstrate that.
Okay, we have another question from Simon, who says that the red brick universities are rejecting students that have been downgraded. I thought they'd be lenient. Can they not wait for appeals to come through and then revisit the students' application?
So usually the universities, if they have, say, X number of places, say they have like 100 places, I'm just making a number up, they won't give 100 offers. They will give offers to maybe 130 people or 150 people or whatever. So that from past experience, they know roughly what proportion will get the grades that they want to fill up that number. If they've already filled up that number with people who already got the grades, then they're confident that they've got the cohort they want, and they'll reject you. So
is what you're saying, Professor Ahmed, is what you're saying, if they've got the numbers that they need, that might be why the rejections are happening and not necessarily because of the downgrade?
Yeah, so for example, so they've got a fixed number of places, and so for medicine, if there's 500 places, there'll be 12,000 people that apply for medicine. A lot of them will be filtered out before on grades. Many of them will be filtered out on communication skills and not confidence that they're going to get the grades. So once you've got your number, then there's no point, you know, you might not be able to take on any more students.
No.
So you reject them, but if you next year when you do your thing and you win the appeal, then that's your grades for next year. You might get a place next year.
Back then, yeah.
There's another question from Ismail. A student received, a student received B grade in the subject. The college states it had no grounds to appeal because center assessed grade was B, ranked 1. Does the student have grounds to appeal if felt the center assessed grade did not reflect the progress or progress? Yes. I think maybe that's another one of them questions.
Thing is, if you've done the mock exams, that is an actual factual number. So if you feel that the mock doesn't reflect your true ability, that's just an emotional feeling. That is an actual number. You've got your mock result.
Yeah.
Okay, you might think it's not a true reflection because you didn't revise properly. I don't think you've got grounds to appeal saying your mock result is wrong, because it's not wrong. It's a number that you've already got. So on what basis would you appeal?
Yeah. Can I also add here, for those students who will be embarking on GCSEs this year, or is that the mock exams are very, very important in this case. So do take them very seriously. If you think, and many students would have done this, we didn't know COVID hit us from March, let's say, of this year. A lot of the students are in a position where, you know what, I don't really care too much about the mock exam. I'll do very well in my final exam. That's fine. A lot of people would have thought that, yeah. But again, the message here, and this is a learning curve for parents as well as the students, is that ensure that you ascertain the best grades that you can, even in your mock, and do not underestimate the mock exams. Because this is possibly, we're hoping that by end of this year, the COVID scenario would end, but perhaps it will filter through for the next 2-3 years. So it will have, so we will have some sort of a filter down effect in the next 2 years as well. So please just ensure that you take mock exams very seriously.
One of the things I really think is unfortunate is that they're called mock exams. You know, the very terminology suggests that they're not that important. You know, it would be good to change the name to serious exams. Because mock exams, it's just like, oh, well, they don't really matter. And that's how my kids used to think of them, you know, until they got told otherwise.
A few more questions. Malika's asked, how are qualifications like EPQ or core maths regarded by universities? Are they worthwhile?
I'm not familiar. What's this EPQ? What does that stand for?
I think this is an additional subject that they take at sixth form, probably as a fourth subject.
Or as a fourth A level?
Well, not necessarily, but it's probably maybe, I don't know.
It's like further maths.
Something like this, yes.
So
it's an extended project qualification.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, of course, anything extra they do should sort of help them.
I mean, if you're going to do a maths degree and you've got a good grade in maths and further maths, then obviously it will help you. If you do it.
Also for engineering, sorry to interrupt, Professor Ahmed, is for engineering, physics / maths is important. And then most universities will require physics / maths. So, I mean, I know all this forum theorem and all that I have done undergraduates many years ago. I'm waiting to use them. But it has to be done. It was an important part of the undergraduates as well as A-levels. So it is essential, particularly if you are going to be doing engineering disciplines.
The other thing you got to work out is, you know, they used to do A-level maths and further maths. And basically, because they put so much emphasis on further maths, some students didn't get high grades in their maths because their resources and time were reduced. And in the other subjects, you don't get very high grades as well. So unless you can guarantee you're going to get a good set of grades, I wouldn't dilute my time and effort doing more of the same thing. So you have to have a strategy where you pick subjects you think you can get good grades in. So further maths is always very hard to get the top grade. So why do it? Why not put your attention on all the other subjects and get a good set of A-level grades?
Okay, we have another question from Simon who says, if international students aren't coming this year, there should be a lot more spaces available, available courses this year. Mock assessments clearly show that the calculated grades are biased, especially when a student has never received anything below an A.
So with international student numbers, for example, say, again, I keep going on back into medicine or whatever, they've got fixed number of places. And that number of places they're going to try and fill. The international students coming in, they don't count in that places. So that's like a bonus for the university. So if the numbers are capped, the international students are not capped. So a university might get 60 places for, say, dentistry.
Yeah.
But they can take on 61 students or 62 students if a couple of them are international. So the international places don't count in them capped numbers. So they don't have more places because international students are not coming.
Okay, maybe on the flip side to that, Professor Ahmed, is that considering that most of the universities will be going down blended learning.
Yes.
And again, I can understand the hands-on lab work, which might not always be there, but particularly for those programs where teachers will be teaching from home, which we will be, it's very likely until January. So these numbers now will be open-ended in many ways. At this University of Leicester particularly,
Yes.
we have a high number, about 800 in engineering, but because there'll be no physical students, we can potentially go to, I don't know, 1,200, 1,500, we can go a lot more this year. So again, just to comfort the students, and like I said, my background is on medicine, but just to comfort the students again, do not be disheartened by the results that you didn't get what you were expecting. There will be institutes somewhere around the country that will take you on. Particularly, I know medicine is very competitive. I also know that number of institutes do make a lot of money from international students because the fees are much, much, much higher. And whereas the home students is a standard fee here. So do not be disheartened. You know, if you need to, make the appeal, please do so. But do ring around other universities, check out the websites through UCAS or directly to other universities. And there will be institute that will take you on.
We have another question, well, the second one from Hania. I think the first one didn't really answer too well. Sitting exams in 2021 would be considered as a resit, and most universities don't accept resits for medicine or dentistry. Would they be more lenient, or will they not accept the application of resit exams? Professor Ahmed? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this question is focusing again on medicine and dentistry. Generally, if you resit your A-levels, the universities don't give you a place on medicine and dentistry because it's a resit and you've got extra time to prepare. But in this case where you've got a calculated grade and you're appealing against the grade that you've got and you sit the exams in autumn, or you sit it for the first time, then it's not considered as a resit.
So this is all subject to what's going to happen next as far as the government's concerned, because we don't know what's going to happen there yet. We do know that because it's been discussed now and it's out in the open how they came to these results and these algorithms that they used have been extremely biased, then some young people will have a very good case for appeal. But I don't think that will happen. I hope it doesn't happen, as I said earlier. And it's a wee bit early yet to be worrying too much about whether or not that will happen. Just let's wait till a few more days and see how this pans out, because I'm absolutely certain that if the government can get something right after what's been happening with COVID-19, they'll have to start trying to do something right. And I do honestly believe that they will have to redress this and look at it again and say, you know, we might have to take back these downgrades to some extent.
Yeah, and there's something else somebody has written. Most students didn't take the second year's mock exam seriously. However, if the student did well previous tests and first year mock exams, But I don't know what the criteria was, but probably they were looking at the last mock exam they did, or, you know, in calculating these, or they look back as a first year as well, or the previous year mock exam. Professor Ahmed?
Yeah, so when I was looking at applications, I'd go back. So you are where you are now. So you'd go back and say, okay, at the beginning, the first official exams of your GCSEs, what grades did they get? Okay, they got good grades. Then they might have had an exam in the first year of your A levels. Then you say, okay, what grade did they get? They got good grades. The last one is a poor grade. So if they got excellent grades throughout and the last one is not that bad and I've got enough places, I might give you the benefit of the doubt. But if my places are already filled up with GCSEs excellent, first mock results excellent, second mock results excellent, obviously I'm going to give the place to the person that's got the last exam as excellent as well as the other ones. So you're at a disadvantage if your last mock exam wasn't very, very high. You didn't take it seriously. And like Imran said earlier on, you have to take them seriously because it's a competitive world. So even in any sports field, if you don't put any effort into a football match, you might be champions. You lose, you lost that match. So it's just the harsh realities of life. You have to try and take, every exam seriously.
I think it goes without saying that's human nature. I think, like, when Dr. Patel and Professor Ahmed are looking at applications, it cannot do you any harm to have been doing well all along, because that shows that you're serious about your subject. You know, if you're passionate and serious about your subject and you want to do well and you've been doing well all the way through, it's human nature to just think, well, that student deserves it more. You know, and I think if your grades have been good all the way along, and I've known it to happen that grades have been good all the way along and then they've lost out on one A or something like that, and they've still got through because at their interview they were more convincing about, you know, what they had to offer to the university. Because remember, it's a two-way stretch.
And there's some information here, maybe if people can find useful. With regards to medicine, even before COVID-19, there were a number of universities that accepted RESIS, an example being Sheffield University. Sometimes they request higher grade requirements for RESIS. It is worth contacting the university directly to ask their view on RESIS.
Yeah, so each university is different. So it's not. I'm not saying all universities don't accept RESIS. So it depends on the subject, depends on the number of places. But some universities will say, if you resit, then we will accept the resit at a higher grade. So I know somebody who, a mature student who wanted to do medicine. And basically what he did is during his career, he did his GCSEs and he did his A levels. And then instead of going into medicine, he went into chemistry. Then he did a degree in chemistry. So he got a first-class degree in chemistry, then he did a PhD in chemistry, got a distinction in chemistry, and he applied to Leicester University. He applied to all the universities in the UK, but eventually he spoke to the admissions tutor at Leicester University. His A-level grades were not good enough to get into medicine. Everything else was good enough. He had the communication skills, he had everything, but his A-levels were not good enough. So what he did, he did 1 year and he resat his A-levels to get his grades up. And then eventually he got into Leicester Medicine on the 4-year program. And now he's a doctor. And so because his A-level grades were not good enough to get into medicine, he couldn't get into medicine, although he had a PhD, he had a degree. You know, he was a brilliant student, basically. At the beginning, early on when he was young, he wasn't serious about his studying.
And how old is he now, Professor Ahmed? 50?
Well, he's in 50s, yeah. And a lot of the universities also rejected him because they said, well, by the time you finish your degree, we will only get about 10 years from we're going to pay all this money, you're only going to get 10 years. But he decided to go to India and set up a hospital in a poor village and help all these. Fantastic. So he wasn't doing it for money, he was doing it out of passion.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
In the university, when he did medicine, he was a brilliant student. But to get in, It was really hard.
Okay. Okay, we'll probably take this the last question. If a student resists his exam in autumn, is there still a chance to get a place in the chosen university this year? What would you say, Imran? Or?
And if I can just give a general opinion here, is that my suggestion would be, whether it's medicine, engineering, law, anything else, ring around. If there is a university that you really want to be affiliated with, again in Northwest, then please do ring around. If that's not possible, then extend or expand your search, and you might need to travel a little bit as well. So each university is a little bit different in that sense. As Professor Ahmed just said, I'm with University of Leicester. I think the example was of the University of Leicester before my time. We look more for quality than quantity. Our students' number are small in engineering, but we are quite adamant. And I was a little bit surprised because I came from another university down south where they were looking more for quality as quantity. So the student strength were about 2,000 in engineering, whereas ours is probably 400 to 600. And we can get even more students. Maybe we can get up to 2,000, but we have a criteria, is quality that we're concerned with. So universities are different in that sense. You have the Russell Group, the Red Brick universities. So again, please do ring the universities that we are really keen to, study.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, or shall we? Oh yeah, there's one more. Like, in a personal statement, is it better to write a lot about a little, or vice versa?
Well, basically, again, it comes down to Rona's point about communication skills. If you write a lot and there's a lot of waffle in there, then obviously it becomes obvious you're just trying to fill the number of words and number of pages. So I think it's important to write the statement in the best quality that you can. And smaller amount of very high quality, I think, is better than a lot of waffle. But
when you do your
but they'll
statement,
have a fixed number they'll have fixed number of words, so you can only write that number of words. So for example, I did this high impact leadership course at Cambridge, and they said, right, you need to write 200 words. If you write 201, you'll get penalized. So to be able to write succinctly and communicate what you want to say, you have to contain yourself in the number of words that you've been given.
There's one more question. Just for clarity, will sitting exams in May 2021 be considered as first sitting?
Yeah, I think so. It'll be the first sitting because you're appealing and they're allowing you to sit it.
Okay. So I think we've given people enough opportunities, chances to ask questions. There's been quite a few questions, and the time is also 8:30 now, close to 8:30. We started at 7. We were thinking it'll be a 1-hour thing, but it's gone on to 1.5 hours. So I'd like to thank our panel, Dr. Imran Patel for his time, Rona Barber, Professor Ahmed, and I've just noticed my friend Dr. Imran Askar from Finland has joined us as well. I'm sure we've been discussing about the A-levels. Also, we have people in the network, if those students who are interested in studying outside as well in Europe, and that not now during the COVID, but we have people who can help assist youngsters who are interested in studying in Europe and other European countries. So once again, thank you everyone for coming. Unfortunately, we were not able to live stream on Facebook, had some technical issues. However, we recorded this webinar, and we will be uploading this on our YouTube channel, and then we'll send everyone a link. And we spoke during these discussions about soft skills and that, and this is once again, this young professional society, we have a lot of focus on that, trying to help youngsters build up their soft skills, writing skills, speaking skills. I mean, we had Malaika was asking about personal statement and writing, and that, we were running the Young Writers Club, trying to help youngsters to write with more clarity and impact. and also about a speakers club. So you become more confident, better communicator, and better public speaker. So we will continue with our efforts, and hopefully, I think now we've had this webinar. If there's anyone who wants to ask more questions and more details, maybe you can send us a message. I can leave an email address here in the chat box that you can ask more detailed questions, and hopefully we will get back in touch and answer them. And hopefully next week, once we have the GCSE results, we'll see how they go, and it may be that we may have organized another webinar and trying to address and help students who have been affected by the GCSE results. So I think, having said all this, we'd like to thank everyone once again. Rona wants to say anything?
I just wanted to say one last word. For anybody who's really keen and striving to get into university, can I recommend a book for you to read? It's called Once in a House on Fire. And it's a great book. And I bought that for a couple of young people that I know that are heading for university.
What is that called? I'll type this up. Once on a House on Fire. Once in a House on Fire. I think that's right. Is it Once Upon a House on Fire? No, it's Once in a House on Fire. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll just put that in the chat. So you and start reading the broadsheets, even if you read them online. If you don't read newspapers, start reading. And hopefully we'll have another webinar on overcoming the fear of public speaking. So look forward to that. And thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Patel, online at least, anyway.
Thank you very much, Rona.
Okay.
My dinner time now, so
yeah, and mine.
Thank you.
Bon appetit. Okay.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Everybody join the Young Professional Society to get more information.
Excellent. Good.